Thank you for listening to Blue Sky Horse Radio. I'm Yenny, and this is at CKMS 102.7 FM Radio Waterloo here in southwestern Ontario, Kitchener-Waterloo area. Today I'm speaking with Wayne Sawchuk, and he's an incredible man who I'm just getting to know a bit more about, and he's written a book, and he does horseback riding and tracking in the BC Rockies. So thank you so much, Wayne, for coming on Blue Sky Horse Radio today.
Thank you, Yenny.
So would you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure. My name is Wayne Sawchuk. I'm a horseman, conservationist, trapper, and my name is Wayne Sawchuk. I'm a horseman, conservationist, trapper, writer living in northern British Columbia near Dawson Creek, the start of the Alaska Highway.
Wow. So for us who are in a different part of the country, it's really amazing to hear about all this. And I was just looking at some of the photos, and you live a life that most people have not encountered, or a lot of people have not encountered. Would you tell us about your history of horseback adventures in BC, Northern Rockies?
Well, I grew up in Chetwynd, and that's in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. I began taking horses up into the mountains in the 1970s or so. We always had horses at home, but I always thought they were the most useless things. All they ever did was eat and crap, and you had to clean up the crap. So I thought they weren't very useful. But then I started going out into the mountains and packing my frying pan and cans of beans and so on. I realized, hey, wait a minute, those horses could be doing some of that work. So instead of backpacking, I started packing in the early 1970s. And continued on to the present day. We've made long horse trips into the Spasizi, Gataga, Prophet River country. And for about the last 20 years or more, I've been making 3 months of the year out in the mountains with the pack string.
That's incredible. And you have written a few books, and we're going to talk about Crossing the Divide. In this story, you talk about 2 expeditions, one to the Fox River area and one to the Rocky Mountain Trench. So how come you chose those 2 particular trips in your book?
Well, I thought that these 2 expeditions had lessons to teach. The Fox River expedition was very challenging. It was an area we hadn't been in before. Very challenging to head up the Rocky Mountain Trench. Lots of windfall, swamps, bugs, and so on. So it was an interesting trip from that perspective. And then trip into the headwaters of the Prophet River was the first time into what would become the Muskoka-Chika management area in time. And in that expedition, it was just a girlfriend and I, Carol Ann Henry, and our little dog Rio at that time. Yeah, that was in 1984. And that kind of influenced me in a really, really big way to become a conservationist and try to work for the protection of that area.
That's amazing. I guess what you saw just inspired you to get more involved like that.
Well, that's right. We were on the Prophet River expedition. We ended up in a very challenging situation at 7,500 feet and snow up over our knees. We lost one of our horses in a rock slide, and it was a really dicey situation. And the only way we got out of that was by following the tracks of a herd of caribou that had gone along the Rocky Mountain Divide, and only by following those bulls, they were half a dozen bulls. I happened to catch sight of them in the mist with their antlers waving in the mist, and that was the only way we managed to get down from that really awful place where we were on the Rocky Mountain Divide at the head of the Prophet River. And so the Prophet River has always been a place of deliverance for me, you might say, and I felt I owed it a kind of a debt. And in the early 80s, mid-80s, natural gas exploration was going great guns, and they were planning to drive roads into a bunch of that area. And as a result, I started working to repay the debt, I guess, and to essentially work for the protection of that area that had saved us and our pack string.
Oh, wow. So how much planning is involved when you make a trip like that?
Well, it takes about a year generally, especially if you haven't done these major expeditions before. There's a lot of equipment. You have to get together your food and gear. Maps is very important. On the Prophet River trip, that was in mid-'80s, and at that time it was pre-digital, of course, the pre-digital age.
Yep.
And there wasn't any detailed maps at all of that area. So we had to work from 101 to 250,000 maps, which, for those who know maps, it's not very detailed, and as a result, very, very big challenge.
Wow. And how was your trip funded?
Well, it didn't cost very much at that time. We just had to truck our horses up to the Prophet River, which is 150 miles north of where we lived. We had to get our food together and all the gear. But there wasn't a huge amount of expense. Once we got out in the mountains, of course, there's no way to spend money out there. So my uncle Norman Sawchuk had a stock truck and a plane, and he supported us by taking us up there with his truck and then coming in and bringing in our food. We had one resupply flight during that summer. And, he was able to do that and make the trip possible.
That's incredible. And then how many people and horses were involved during these trips?
Well, it really depended. In the early trips, they were quite small. So on the Prophet River trip, which was a very early trip, we had 2 saddle horses, 4 pack horses, our little dog Rio, and that was the total crew. Later on, we've had as many as 2 dozen horses on the trip, and 8 riders and 4 staff. So yeah, very, very big, much bigger operation these days. Although we're scaling back a little bit now.
Yeah, I was thinking about that during COVID here. How has that affected you, or has it affected you in any way?
Yes, last year in 2020, we had to cancel a couple of expeditions just because of uncertainty, COVID uncertainty. But we managed to pull off a fairly good year all the same. And paradoxically enough, people are looking for, an adventure close to home.
Yeah.
They don't want to travel too far. So we're getting lots of British Columbians who are joining us in 2021, assuming we'll be able to go. And right now, we don't know if that's going to be possible, but we're hopeful.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully, it'll just kind of open up and ease up a little bit by little bit here.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then
when the vaccinations start kicking in, hopefully it'll open a little space for us.
Yeah. Alrighty, and then do you have any emergency plans for the humans and the horses during your trips?
Well, in the early days, no. The plan was that if somebody got hurt, if someone got hurt, the other party would have to go for help. Basically because we were out in the mountains for 3 months on that trip, and
wow.
And there's very little resupply there, and no backup. We didn't have a radio or any communications. And so basically, the plan was if one of us got hurt, the other one would have to ride for help.
Yeah.
And no matter how long that took, it could be a week or 2. So yeah, we were hanging it out there. Now these days, of course, we have digital communications. We have satellite email, satellite phone. So help can be there within a few hours.
Yeah.
Via helicopter.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. So what kind of pre-training do you need for humans and horses?
People have asked me this in the past, and how much, how fit should I be, and what kind of pre-training? And I always say the fitter the better. It's not necessary to know a whole bunch about horses because our horses are trained for that. They're good solid stock, and they know what to do. But you have to be fit. Mm-hmm. In order to make one of these trips, you have to be able to get on and off, climb up the hills and walk down. So that does require for many of us who are sedentary, especially in this time of COVID so much, an exercise regime is a really good plan ahead of time before you head out into the mountains.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. And during your trips, I know you've been doing this for a long time, but any kind of danger or wildlife threats that you encountered, could you tell us about that?
There's a lot of objective dangers. When you're out there in the mountains, you can get snowstorms that can close passes. You can get high water, which is one of the things we really have to watch because many of the rivers are big. There's no bridges and no trails there, so you could easily get swept downriver. You have to be very, very careful for that. But the threat from wild animals is really overrated. The worst problem that we have is porcupines coming into camp because, they like to eat leather or rubber or plastic, all those things that are hanging around camp a lot. And, so porcupines are the big ones. But in all our time out there, we've never had an incident with bears or wolves where we've felt like we were in danger at any time. So, it's not exactly what people expect, but that is what we found to be the case up there in the mountains.
Mm-hmm. I guess that's good. You have enough people with you. Yeah.
Well, that's right, and we also have a couple dozen horses, so that's it's something that the animals really take note of, and that's a big group to interfere with. So we've just had no trouble with bears ever.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm sure you have a lot of memorable moments, but could you share some of them with us?
Memorable moments. Certainly the story that I tell in the book about crossing the Prophet River Divide, I think that was one that, it was really life-changing for me, certainly. It was a 4-day crossing of the Rocky Mountain Divide. We were up high on the mountains at over 7,500 feet. A snowstorm came down on us. No way forward. Lost a horse in a rock slide. It was a really, really challenging situation. And only because of those caribou bulls were we able to even be saved. That was really, really challenging, but it was something that taught me. Well, for one thing, in life, there's bookends on your experiences, and this put a bookend on one end of it. Like, this is how bad things can get. Yeah. And after being in that kind of a situation, a lot of the other things that we have to deal with in life, the small little hassles of day-to-day life, they seem rather trivial and inconsequential compared to something like that. And I think that stood me in good stead over the years. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine even what that would have been like. That's like a movie moment almost, like it should be featured in a movie.
Yeah, really challenging. It was a very, very challenging experience, and but one that I think we came away from a lot stronger. And out of that came the Muskoka-Chika Management Area. Ultimately, at least my component of that initiative.
Mm-hmm. So, how many days start to finish when you go for an adventure like that through the Northern Rockies? How long do you go out for?
Generally, it's about 3 months. The Prophet River expedition was 85 days. And we don't, of course, we're not crossing any roads or encountering any communities or towns during that time. So, we're out there for the whole time, basically from mid-June to mid-September.
Wow. That's really incredible. I'm sitting here in a city in southwestern Ontario and looking at these pictures, and it's just amazing. From the pictures that you sent me here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great amount of. It's so beautiful out there. It's a wonderful landscape. And there's not many places in the world now where you can go for weeks and, in fact, months at a time and not cross roads or see evidence of humans. The landscape is still natural.
That's very good.
It's basically, it's like Banff and Jasper, but no roads and no people.
Incredible. Okay, well, could you tell us a bit more about your latest book, Crossing the Divide? Could you tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, it was published by Creekstone Press, and I have to give a shout out to Sheila and Lynn with Creekstone, who took a chance on this thing and published it, and also my wife Donna Kane, who prompted me to get the thing done and get it out there. It's been sitting on my computer for a few years, and she prompted me to get it done. And to those people, they have I give all the credit for getting this thing completed, because it did take quite a while to do. Mm-hmm. But I think I wanted to make it more than just an adventure story. I wanted people to understand, well, first of all, what the values are out on the land, the Muskoka-Chika itself. And I also wanted to examine our relationship with hunting and trapping and the use of wildlife. I think that, in this modern age, a lot of us are removed from interactions with wildlife, and I think that people forget that at root, respect is the fundamental thing that you need to bring to all of your interactions with the natural world, really. Not only trapping and hunting, but anything we do out there, industrial operations and so on. Mm-hmm. And so I think my book revolves around, respect for the land and respect for the wildlife that are out there and the ecosystems that sustains us all.
Mm-hmm. That's really great. And how can people? It's so rejuvenating, and I mean, especially in a time like this where, like, we're under lockdown here and under curfew and everything in Ontario. So it's really nice to see about a book like yours and to be speaking with you, because it's just a completely other perspective, and like, you can really sense the freedom there, which I think we all really need right now.
Yes, indeed. I need it too, because we are locked down here too in BC to a large degree. I mean, northern BC right now. Yeah. And there's just it's a world removed from coming over the crest of a high mountain pass and looking out onto a sea of mountains, for instance. Mm-hmm. The freedom and the exhilaration. Mm-hmm. So I agree, we need that for sure. Yeah. I hope my book captures a little bit of that.
Oh, I'm sure it does. So where can people purchase your book?
It is on many independent booksellers, such as Monroe's Books in Victoria, Cole's Indigo, and many others. If you just search around, you'll find it. Not on Amazon, however.
That's all right. And then you get lots of business anyways.
Well, that was the thinking at the time, yeah.
Yeah. And have you written any other books?
I have a large format photo book, Muskoka-Chika, the Wild Heart of Canada's Northern Rockies. This basically tells the story of the Muskoka-Chika in pictures, and there's a lot of writing in the book as well, but that book has done very well, and I think, it's been a really, really good experience for me to do that book. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Do you have any online presence? Do you have a web page?
Yes, if people go to, it's go2mk.ca, and the 2 is the number 2. So go2mk.ca, and you'll find all the information there. And also my Facebook site, Wayne Sawchuk Facebook site, will get you a lot of information as well.
Very good. So then what's next for you at this point?
Well, I am looking at another book. I'm starting to write it. I guess that's something that's just always in the background. I'm always doing a little bit of writing. And we're looking forward to next summer and getting people out on the trail again and getting ourselves out there. In Mayfield Lake, we are having a horse and wellness camp, which if people are interested in that, they can contact me directly, and I'll get you the information on that. We have small numbers, but it's going to be a big camp. We're going to be flying in out of Muncho Lake, and I think that's going to be a really good one. Our expeditions are all full this year. We have we're doing a little bit shorter than normal, but still a major expedition. And it's going to be a very interesting summer. I'm cutting back my involvement a little bit in the big expedition, but still maintaining all the time at Mayfield and some of the shorter expeditions. So this should be an interesting summer. It's a bit of a summer of transition, but I think it's going to be very interesting. Mm-hmm. As well, I also do other things on the Muskoka-Chika Management Area Board, for instance. That is something that keeps me quite busy. It's an outcome of the processes that created the Muskoka-Chika, to have a board that helps government to manage the Muskoka-Chika.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's really awesome, staying involved like that and being part of it. That's great.
Absolutely.
So, Wayne, do you have any parting words for us?
I think I just want people to understand the values of the Muskoka-Chika and what we have. It's basically a lifeboat of biodiversity for the planet, and certainly the healthiest chunk of the Rocky Mountains that's still left. It has more wildlife, more species of big wildlife than anywhere else in North America. And I think, and the numbers are amazing there. So I think that's the central thing, and that I would like to convey to people and have them remember. And also the fact that, you know, we really do need to change our relationship with the natural world. And for too long, it's been straight exploitation in many cases. And I think that we have to have a filter that says, do we respect the natural world in this interaction with it? And I believe, for instance, industry and recreationalists alike have to have that kind of a lens when we experience the natural world, and I think, or use it in the case of industry. And I think if we do that, if we put that different lens on our actions, I think we'll all live in a stronger and better place as far as nature goes. Yeah, it's so sad what's happening with nature around the world now, and we absolutely have to think of things in a different way at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Wayne, this has been really informative. Thank you so much for speaking with me. I'm looking forward to getting the book as well and looking through it. And the pictures are amazing that we're going to be sharing on the Blue Sky Horse Radio Facebook page. I'll create something for YouTube as well, and it will go live on 102.7 FM here locally in Kitchener and Waterloo, as well as the website, which is www.radiowaterloo.ca. Thank you so much for listening to Blue Sky Horse Radio, and thank you so much, Wayne Sawchuk, for speaking with us here today.
Thank you, Jenny. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you also to our sponsor and collaborator in kind, Canadian Wild Horses.